Does what you do for work have anything to do with what you were fascinated by when you were 10 years old? A few years ago, I would have laughed out loud at that question. But I want to spend the next few minutes telling you about how that outlook and perspective changed for me suddenly and dramatically one night, and about how I've moved off the hamster wheel and discovered some of the more creative aspects and opportunities of life. But first, let me tell you about a walk I went on the other day. 7 miles, no camera, no phone, no headphones, distracted only by the birdies, the blossoms, and the beauties of early spring around me. I had one question in my mind. Who exactly am I trying to reach with these videos, and what can I do for that person? Some of you may have noticed that I haven't been uploading videos for about 3 weeks after a perfect streak of 6 months of uploading every week. Now, this was a deliberate pullback. I'm not burned out or disillusioned, and I'm certainly not quitting. But I realized something about my channel, that it had become somewhat of a platypus. You know, those furry, strange, egg-laying, duck-billed mammals from Eastern Australia that kind of prove that God has a sense of humor. I had been making videos about everything from the stock market to resistance bands, to retirement, to what to eat, to how to sleep better, to artificial intelligence, for crying out loud. Now, I'm interested in all those subjects and I enjoyed making those videos. But it was certainly confusing for everyone, including YouTube's precious algorithm. Thousands of people would watch one video, then the next week, 37 people would watch the next. I was driving my audience away by abruptly and rudely changing the subject. And I realized on my long walk that there are people on this platform much more expert and capable of expounding on those topics than I am, and that those aren't really my areas of expertise. So the question remains, what is it that I can distinctly and resonantly offer to you as a viewer? Who am I exactly? Well, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. I grew up in a loving household with plenty of rules, but no seatbelts in the station wagon, if you know what I mean. And I know that plenty of you do. I was, like many of you, I'm sure, a very imaginative child. I mean, I was always pretending to be an astronaut, a cowboy, a Olympic athlete, or a ship captain of some kind. And I would recruit my 4 siblings and all the neighborhood kids I could find into these elaborate fantasies that would sometimes last all of a summer's day from dawn to dusk. Some of them enjoyed it more than others, but I never wanted it to end. When I was about 7 or 8, I started writing small stories and making them into picture books that I gave to my mother for her entertainment, an audience of one. No one else ever saw these things. But she treasured these works and encouraged me and kept asking for more. So writing became a part of me that could never be amputated, that persisted with me even when I ignored it over the years. A very formative experience came for me in 1975 when I, at the age of 9, saw the movie Jaws at a drive-in theater for the first time. And I watched this movie from the rooftop of that seatbeltless station wagon. And I was so terrified that I didn't dare get out of the car when we got home that night. But I was also convinced that I had just seen the greatest work of art ever created by humankind. The way Steven Spielberg put that project together changed the way my imagination worked from then on. So starting the very next day, my elaborate fantasies with my siblings and the neighbor kids were not about being the astronauts. They were about producing and directing and starring in the movie about the astronauts. I'm so grateful for those little kids who went along with me in this. So, over the years, what happened? Where are my Academy Awards? Well, life happened, and I let it happen, and there's no one to blame but myself. I went through school as an extreme introvert. I would get A's in any class having to do with writing or creativity, and I got D's in math, as you might expect. As soon as I graduated college, I immediately began going to work, selling other people's boring things, managing departments of other people's boring businesses. I needed steady income. Got married, had 3 kids, took on a mortgage. The distinct gifts, talents, those early childhood abilities and tendencies that I had were in large part put on a shelf, delayed, set aside, and ignored until we got into the internet age. Then one night when I was in my 40s, I woke up in a cold sweat feeling what could really only be a panic attack. There I was, next to my beautiful wife, surrounded by my comfortable home, my sweet children, in perfect health, with a job that was decent, paid the bills. And so why did I feel like screaming, "There has got to be something else"? Let me tell you a secret. There is. There is something else. There is more, much more. And so, coming away from that experience, from that midnight epiphany, over the next few years, things changed for me. I made them change. I finally sat down and wrote and then published that novel that I had known I needed to write for more than 20 years. I got up onto the stage for the first time and actually played the lead role in a community musical theater production. Acted, sang, danced my heart out. Imagine what a shock this was to all of those neighbors and friends who had known me for years as someone who just doesn't do that kind of thing. Then I accepted a 5-year assignment as a volunteer pastor for my church congregation. Again, imagine the shock. But this experience really helped open me up to other people and become much more of a social person. I transformed in my understanding of people and really unfolded in my empathy for others. I decided to jump back into school at the age of 50 and got my MBA, which really expanded my horizons in terms of strategic control over my career and filled in some gaps in my business knowledge. Now, I'm still not a movie star, but hold up. I'm writing, directing, and starring in this film you're watching right now. What a wonderful world we live in. I thank you all. But really, I'm just getting started. My goals and plans for the next 10 years involve many more projects, making videos like this, writing more books, and helping as many people as I can to do the same thing and reconnect to their childhood dreams and ambitions. So this is what I believe my edge to be. And I plan to cover this over a dozen or so videos coming up. Really, it's a tale of 2 bridges. There's the bridge between who you started as, those childhood dreams and ambitions, to who you wound up being today. That bridge might be damaged. It could be broken. It might be completely underwater. There's some repair work that may need to be done there. And then there's the bridge to who you could be at full flower. Now, that bridge may be under construction. You may have done some work there, but it's crossing over some swift moving water, and it might be difficult to lay those foundations. We'll talk about how to do that. And of course, with any story of bridges, there will be trolls, and we'll deal with them as well. We'll deal with the obstacles. Now, I'm not calling what I want to share my special wisdom. Only a fool claims to be wise. My experience is limited to myself and the people I've worked with. But I think there's something both ironic and iconic about this. I do believe that there is something universal in each of us in our individual experiences that has the capacity to resonate with a certain very small sliver of humanity and to have a big impact. That's what literature, that's what film, that's what creativity of any kind is all about, communication. So out of the millions of mature adults that have access to these videos, I'm confident that there are a few hundred of you for whom my experience can really hit home. Now, I would ask, what do you think about this decade we're living in now, these 2020s? I happen to believe that I was born to reach my full potential at this time in the internet age. Now, I clearly have more gray hair and less spring in my step than I had 30 years ago, but I'm not who I was then. I know things now that I didn't know then. I have access to technologies now that no one had access to then. I believe that now is the time for me to reach for my full capacity as a human being, and I feel the same way about you. And it involves a reconnection with what you came into the world with and had and experienced in those first 10 years of your life that were maybe set aside by the harsh realities of the second 10 years of your life and the third 10 years and the fourth 10 years. I also believe that I was born to be here. And I'm not talking about where I live on the planet. I'm talking about the distances between us and how they've changed. Even 100 years ago, if you wanted to have an impact on someone on the other side of the world, your only option was to post a letter that had maybe a 50% chance of arriving within a month or two. Today, you can pull out your phone and in 30 seconds drop a comment on a YouTube video that has the potential to change the course of the life of a young creator in Indonesia, for better or worse. The distances between people are really no longer significant or meaningful. We have collapsed our reach, and now we're really just competing for each other's attention. So let's reset. This channel is now branded Bloomin' Late. To bloom is a verb, and we're very much about action here. A flower can bloom according to its genetic program and when the season is right. And I'm telling you, the season is right now. I asked Gemini to give me some characteristics of a human being in bloom. And that's what you're seeing on the screen now, because I wanted you to see and react to some of these words and ask yourself, is this me? Is this who I want to be? Healthy, energetic, and attractive, often with a youthful, radiant glow? Do you want to experience a significant period of personal development and be thriving in all areas of your life? Does blooming sound appealing to you? Did you feel your heart rate quicken just a little in the past few minutes? I'm your Huckleberry. We've got a lot of things to dive into, and we'll dive so deep your ears will pop. Call to action right now, though, just 3 simple things. Subscribe if you haven't already. Also subscribe to the email letter, linked to in the description. And for heaven's sakes, watch this video next. It's about how to talk to yourself if you want to be bloomin' as a human.